The Landlord Cheat Sheet. This week, Andy Brown, our host, asks Ian and myself what we would do to build a property business from zero. So if you want to find out what our tips are for building a property business from a zero start, zero contacts, zero money, here's what we would do. Thanks to the Survey Network for supporting our podcast this week. And don't forget, hit the subscribe button if you like what you're hearing.
Gents.
Hello.
Hello. Right, podcast episode today. I'm going to put you on the spot. Right, so I'm going to set the scene. So imagine that you've got no contacts, no cash, no properties, but you have the experience that you have today. What would you do to start the property business? I'm using your wisdom here, but there's silence.
Who do you want? Who? You have to call one of us out.
I'm calling out Mike first.
No contacts, not a problem. No properties, not a problem. No cash is a bit of a problem unless you've got a serious record. So behind the scenes, I spoke to a couple of financiers yesterday because obviously I'm a company director. And
Bet that was exciting.
I rounded up £750,000.
Oh.
So I'm all right. I'm in the game. As it goes, sorted. 5 years as company director, running successful businesses that have turnover that grows every single year means you can raise finance. They were and it was like, just draw as much as you can and then use it, not just draw a mortgage, draw money, draw cash flow, these things. So that's the first thing I do. Is I rang a couple of people who said, who do I talk to? They said, I'll intro you. And I was on the phone within half an hour to some people who were very aggressive about giving me money. So that's my first point.
Nice. Well, I think it's probably, unless you're Mike or
I'm hardly like high net worth individual, by the way. Like let's not go too fast.
For the people that are listening that are not company directors of 5 years, that are kind of just sat there and in a normal employed role or whatever you want to look at, I think it's probably easier to find contacts than it is to find cash. And if you find the right contacts, you find cash. So, for example, I actually bought an investment before I bought my first property, and it was a refurb. Being in the property game allowed me to see the opportunity, but at like 20 years old, I didn't have much cash behind me to do anything with. I was fortunate enough at the time that there was such a thing as a Skipton 125%.
Those were the days.
Building loan. But if I hadn't have had that opportunity, it would have been a case of seeing that this deal was a fantastic deal and then going and finding the contacts that would be interested in coming in with me. So happened I did do it as a joint venture. And I have done quite a few joint ventures. Don't particularly like the phrase. Done it with someone else for like normal human language rather than...
Yeah, JV makes me like curl up and die a little bit inside.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I get that as well. So yeah, just doing it with a partner in crime ultimately. And if you've got the knowledge and someone else has got the cash that doesn't have the knowledge, you're a good set of business partners.
Yeah, I mean, that's effectively what I did. I went out and found someone who would give me the cash to do it. And traditionally in the Southeast, if you're not going to go to a financer because you don't have the record to do that, you would go to your parents or someone with equity to be able to do that, who can just fund you the deposit to do it. Yeah.
And I think the people that do this successfully and don't do it successfully is you've got to kind of want that, because you are, it's a bit of a version of begging, you know, in reality. You need to go there with something that's appealing. You can't just do that at the first step and go, right, I'm going to find some property deals. I need 100 grand's worth of deposit and I can get the mortgage. In fact, I did a refurb with my mum and my stepdad, and I got the finance, I got the mortgage because they were retired, and they put down the deposit. And, you know, we've kind of bought the property 50-50. They put 50% cash down, I got 50% finance, and we went at it 50-50. I paid the finance, and then obviously we split the proceeds afterwards. So, you know, that was quite a nice way to do it. But I found I had the deal first. You know, it was too good a deal not to do with someone ultimately that you trust, if that can be the case. But you do have to have that mindset of going, right, I'm going to make this work. Because if you go at it blasé, or you give up after you've had sort of 9 knockbacks, it could be the 10th that is the one that gets there.
Yeah.
So you've got to be pretty committed and pretty open to rejection, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So you've got to get that mindset piece quite right.
What looking at sort of today's market, what strategy would you focus more on now? I.e. HMOs straight in, normal buy-to-lets?
I think in the context of what you've just said here, you're at 0 and you need to start. I think you need to start with something that's some version of a refurb project. You need something that's going to get you some chunky equity. HMO potentially doesn't do that because you can't pull enough out on the refinance. Maybe you flip and sell it, and you get all of the deposit, all of the profit back, and then you go your separate ways and you do your own thing. If you're keeping the property, ultimately, you're going to need to keep the investor that you're doing it with in on the deal. So that means you might not align in that kind of fire. They might want to get out. And if they do, you need to sell it. And if you need to sell it, then you need to do something where it's a decent chunk. So those deals are few and far between. They are out there, but they're not as easy as...
It's tougher now because of the tax to buy in, isn't it? But we're hitting all the buzzwords. We've already done JV and strategy in the first 5 minutes. Yeah,
I think also with that, it's you're probably going to be someone that's buying their first property in that situation. It's very unlikely that you've got a portfolio of 3 and you're at 0 and 0 contacts. Not really a thing, because if you were, you're going to use some refinancing or you're going to sell one of them, and then that's where the money comes from. So let's assume this person has nothing. Ideally, they don't even have a residential, and then it's a case of that's part of the strategy that you might need to play. If you do have a residential and you still want to do it, you might need to partner with someone that doesn't have a residential and it's going in their name, so that on the way out, there aren't the tax penalties that come into play if it's gone through in their name. So, I'm not the accountant here. So.
Disclaimer.
I was about to throw that in. Yeah.
We're doing things here slightly that, there's certain names on certain documents and certain names not, but that might, I think that's what you're looking at.
There are. Yeah. I mean, there's stuff out there. You said obviously the famous Skipton mortgages that we saw. What are we talking? 15 years ago, probably more. Yeah. I saw a Virgin rate announced about the start of this week, £10,000 cash back for property improvements. Haven't seen that for a while, but it's out there. So, they'll throw you the mortgage and then give you 10 grand to do the refurb. We spoke last week. You reckon you can do a light refurb in 10 grand? I can't. So, it comes down to how much are you willing to roll your sleeves up, because we know I'm not, apparently. Yeah. It's fair. It's true.
There's also looking at the problematic listings, something that doesn't have a bathroom in it, something that doesn't have a kitchen in it. It's unmortgageable at that stage. So you are limited to cash buyers only. So if you are in a position when you can go and find a cash buyer, or you can find that level of finance, you're going to get that significantly below market value. And in reality, even if it doesn't need everything into it, or you do the cheap refurb on it, as long as you slap a kitchen in there, all of a sudden it's mortgageable.
Gents, thank you for giving all your insights into this subject. I think it's an important one. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to start in property, don't know where to start. I think with your insights, it just sort of gives an indication of your experience from the start and helping other people to get involved as well. But if you need any advice on your property journey, then just reach out to us. More than happy to help anyone on that journey that they want to start. So thank you, gents. We'll see you next time on the Investors Corner. And if you like what you hear, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and share it with others as well.